Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7 So this was a question that was raised in my brain after reading the Solo a Star Wars Story official guide from DK Publishing. And again, bing, thanks DK for sending that to me. So the deal, of course, with that droid control room, or at least just the main control room in Kessel, is that there are a whole bunch of droids controlling all these systems and so forth, and L337 popped the restraining bolt off of one of them and said, go, have fun with your friends. And so the robots all went and took each other's restraining bolts off and then decided to go deactivate everybody's slave collars. And that was Anthony Daniels going, freedom, and knocking the button that deactivated the collars and so forth. And gonk droids, or gonk-like looking like droids, stomping on controls and keyboards and whatnot. Anyway, so on the one hand, that seems like a bit of a plot point, if you will. Like, they said, okay, these guys are getting into Kessel, they're going to need to get out of Kessel, they're going to need some kind of distraction. How do we make that happen in a way that helps the plot, that plays in with character traits, and so on and so forth? And so they come up with the idea of a droid rebellion leading to a wider slave rebellion on Kessel. But then you get to Solo a Star Wars Story's official guide, and here's where all the explanatory stuff comes in about why it's a bunch of droids running the place in the first place. And we already know on the labor side that they're getting cheap labor because they're getting prisoners from the Empire and slaves from God knows where else. And at least in the Empire's case, all they have to provide is some minerals for it, which, I guess you could kind of get into a question or a discussion about the economics of the spice mines of Kessel and say, well, like for how much they could have sold the minerals for in the open market, is it really a bargain for them getting these prisoners and making them into slaves and whatnot? To say nothing of the morality of the whole issue, because clearly it's immoral. And so, yeah, that's, a default statement that we don't need to revisit or question. We know it's immoral. Okay, just period, paragraph. But I am going to be looking at the economics of the whole Kessel thing on a future episode, which is why, it popped up. But anyway, so we know about where they're getting their labor, but now we've also been introduced, thanks to the official guide, to a term, admin mechs. Admin mechs, ADMINMECHS. Admin mechs are being used to cut costs in the Kessel mining operation as well, and they're apparently relatively common in clerical situations and in managerial service and so on and so forth. But the reason why they are particularly liked by the Pikes in this situation is because A, they're all about efficiency, right? They're about getting the absolute most out of the least possible effort and so on and so forth. They're also unquestionably obedient, at least when they have these very nasty restraining bolts. I guess there are some restraining bolts that are nastier than others, and they've got the especially nasty ones on them, so they will unquestioningly follow the orders of the Pike Syndicate. So, there you go. And they also don't steal anything. So another ideal situation with the Pikes. They don't have to search these droids for random coaxium that they might be tucking in their pockets or anything like that. Hey, these droids don't even wear pants, so it's not even an issue. So the thing I wonder about is when Larry and John Kasdan come up with this scene where they're in the control room on Kessel and L337 starts a droid revolution, somewhat unwittingly, but then certainly adds fuel to the fire of it once she realizes what's actually happening. But they're writing this scene. How deeply are Larry and John actually considering this scene? Are they considering the fact that, the Pike Syndicate, like, they're trying to control costs, which is why all these droids are here, and they're admin mechs, and they're here because they won't steal anything, and because they follow orders, and because they're all about efficiency? Like, is that it? Or is Pablo Hidalgo coming in after the fact and going, okay, Larry and John wrote this crazy scene about droids and, they're working in the control room and they started this revolution. So how is it that we justify this? Not justify. I mean, justify is probably not the correct word I mean to say here. How do we explain this? How do we talk about this whole scene in a way that makes it fit into a larger narrative about the Pikes and about what's going on Kessel? And I kind of think that's what the real case is, that it's almost a form of retconning, which, for those of you unfamiliar with the term, is retroactive continuity. It's a smashing up of the two terms. I think it's a portmanteau is what it actually is. Again, with pronunciation on Star Wars 7 by 7, but two words smashed together to suggest that the continuity of something is being retroactively changed. It's not really a retcon per se, because that would be changing the meaning of something that's already happened, and Pablo isn't necessarily changing the meaning of something that's already happened. He's adding an extra layer of interpretive meaning on something that's already happened, and that's part of what he might be doing as part of the creation of Solo: A Star Wars Story's official guide. But I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think that was baked in by Larry and John in their original writing, that idea of why droids are actually in this control room in the first place? Like, did they actually think it through that deeply, or did they leave that one for Pablo Hidalgo to brainstorm and come up with? Share in comments wherever you are catching this podcast, and let me know what you think. And that is going to do it for the video version. Over on the audio version at sw7x7.com/iTunes, we will do Last Jedi trivia. But for now, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.